Welcome to GoPowerCat.com's Friday walkthrough, sponsored by Riverbank Brewing. Now, let's head into the studio.
Hey everyone, and welcome in here to the Friday walkthrough. I'm Cole Carmody, and with me, as always, my good friend, former Kansas State defensive back Monty Spiller. Kansas State and Colorado, it's finally time. If you're watching this, it actually is probably not finally time because it's a 9:15 kick in Boulder. Another late night game, Monty. We've had last week, you and Big B and myself, we recapped kind of the Oklahoma State game and looked forward to this game. If you haven't watched that episode yet, highly recommend going to do that. We do talk some Colorado, but this episode is strictly for the Buffaloes. Monty, I am jacked for this game because this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's one of those games. I think the only downfall is the 9:15 time. You know, there's nothing we can do about it at this point except for prep for it. You and I had a good time talking about the BYU game, prepping for it, how we were going to stay up for it and watch it, but not quite as bad. I think this time around it kind of prepped us for it, but hopefully the outcome is different. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I knew when I saw the schedule come out, I was excited about this game for several different reasons. For one, with Colorado being a former Big 8 and Big 12 opponent, it was good to have them back in the conference. And then now when you have a big name like Coach Prime, his boys, Travis Hunter, all those guys, everything that goes into it, it makes the game even more exciting.
Yeah, it does. And I want to talk about that 9:15 kick because I think that there might be not necessarily an advantage, but Kansas State has already had a 9:15 kick. And so I think that adjustment period in Provo, I mean, that's real. And I talked about it on one of our podcasts earlier this week, getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Kansas State, if they want to be a good road team, they're going to have to get used to playing in these kinds of environments. I mean, Monty, they already have announced the kickoff time for West Virginia. And of course, it's another primetime game at night. And so Kansas State is hopefully used to that opportunity to play under the lights. But I mean, you're a former player. What do you do all day? Because I mean, it sure feels like a kickoff at 8:15 local time is not exactly the most enticing thing for a player.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when I played, we didn't have all the technology that these kids have today. Normally what we would do, we would watch other games. Coach Snyder did a really good job of occupying our time. We would watch team movies. We would have walkthroughs. We would find ways to fill that void. And fortunately for us, we didn't have a lot of these non-traditional times. But when we did, I remember one year we played Nebraska at an 11 o'clock game, and that was changed for us. We had to be at the complex super early, have team breakfast, chapel, you name it. We did things. And then before you know it, it was kickoff. So that was probably the most different experience I had as a player. But like I said before, when we would travel and we had a little bit of a gap, we would find time to be productive, but we would always be a team. There was no me time unless it was a bowl game. And that's one of the things I'm pretty sure our coaching staff, K-State, has it figured out. And like you said before, going to Provo just a few weeks ago kind of prepped us for this trip to Boulder, and hopefully our boys are ready.
Yeah, and take what you learned in Provo, you know, from a coach's perspective, take what you learned as far as, hey, this worked, this didn't work. We need more time to do this. We need less time to do this. I think that's very real because, again, you might be used to getting prepped for the 6:30 kickoff. You might be getting used to getting prepped for the 2:30 and 11 a.m., but the after dark thing is just different. And so interested to see how K-State comes out. I think we'll be able to tell a lot about how this game's going to go based off of the first few drives. If K-State comes out and is firing all cylinders, it could be really good for the Wildcats. Colorado comes into this game, Monty, 4-1. K-State also 4-1. K-State, the number 18 team in the country. Colorado is unranked, but I look at this Colorado team, and we'll kind of look at their personnel a little bit in the second half, but just some of the biggest storylines as we kind of dive in head first here. I mean, this Colorado team is looking to make a statement. They are on the radar, but it feels like they're kind of on the radar for the wrong reason. They're going to come out and play hard because this team wants the rest of the country to know that they are for real.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And anybody who watched college football this past weekend watching games goes to show any team can win at any time. And you and I both know Vanderbilt being one of the biggest stories of the weekend, beating Alabama, the number one ranked Alabama. And whenever a team goes on the road, i.e. K-State, you got to be ready. for players to be amped up for you. They're the underdog at home, not a major underdog at home, but they're still an underdog at home. And like you said, there's so many storylines with this. And I know you mentioned it last week when you and myself and Big B were talking. The stars are going to be there, and people are going to want to see what's going on because they are now 4-1. We're 4-1, and people might not want to admit it, but K-State is somewhat of a household name, especially in the Big 12 conference. And people are going to want to see, hey, what is this team about? We lost to BYU, we know that, but a lot of people understand that that's not the K-State that we have become to know, and we know we can do a lot better. So it's going to be a great game. I'm excited for it. I think K-State, we're going to have to weather the storm early, but find a way to win.
Why is it so hard to win road games? I mean, that is the question that everybody is asking that nobody has an answer to. But like literally, you look at all those upsets last week, and they were all teams who were on the road who lost. And it's perplexing because you don't really see that. I mean, I guess you see it a little bit in college basketball, but you don't really see it factor in that much in the NFL. You don't really see it factor that much in baseball or in pro basketball. But college football, it seems like the upsets are getting more and more frequent. It's kind of almost unexplainable.
Yeah. People, and I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes people forget college athletes, they're still young men. And you can prepare them however you want to. But sometimes when adversity hits, you're on the road, you're in a hostile environment, and the team momentum is a real thing. And the team that's the underdog at home, they had the momentum. Guys play out of their mind, and they make plays that they normally wouldn't make in any other game of the year on the at home or on the road. And that plays a major role. And a lot of times they're still kids. Yeah, I know NIL is in play, and guys are getting this money, these cars, these endorsement deals, which is great, but they're still kids. It's still like a lot of 18 to 23-year-olds, unless you're the quarterback of Utah, the quarterback of Oklahoma State, you might be a little bit older. But those still are younger guys, and they haven't faced real adversity in environments like that. And when it hits, they're in shock. And now a lot of them do rebound, and they become used to it because they become seasoned vets, for example. But it's tough, and coaches try to prepare you for it in practice. But when you get there, it just ain't the same. And it's a great thing to experience on both sides of it. So, yeah, it's hard to see.
I'm excited for this road atmosphere as we kind of look at what Boulder might be like. I know we've talked about it a little bit. You've played there, but it is a completely different road environment than, I don't want to say any place in the Big 12, but there's just so many different things about Colorado that make it a tough place to play. And I know we talked a little bit about the altitude, but this is even more intense altitude in Boulder. And so not very often do you get a chance to play a football game in the mountains, but that's basically what K-State is about ready to attempt to do. I do wonder if that plays a role in anything. I don't think it'll be that bad. I kind of just tend to think, all right, DJ Giddens has a long run of 65 yards. Instead of staying out for one play, as we've kind of talked about with the past with Provo, maybe he's out for 2 or 3 plays while he tries to catch his breath. I think goodness gracious, on Saturday, it's going to be a game where there's going to be a lot of rotating skill guys. I look for guys at the receiver position, Trey Spivey. Dante Cephas has been getting reps, but some of the other guys, Jace Brown, Sterling Lockett, I want to see some more guys get involved in the offense, because I think the more fresh you keep your players, the better outcomes that you will get, especially when you're not used to playing in that altitude.
No, you're absolutely correct on that, Cole. And I expect to see a lot of rotation in the first half. For me as a player, it took me almost a halftime to adjust to the altitude. And at that point, the game had slowed down enough where we weren't grasping for breath. We weren't like 1 play, 2 plays, and on the sideline getting oxygen. So it became a lot more difficult the first 2 quarters. But I expect to see a lot of rotation in the first 2 quarters to give guys a break. And then, like I said, I think at halftime, moving forward, 3rd and 4th quarter, guys have adjusted at that point. I will say I feel like K-State has more quality depth than Colorado, but Colorado do have the big name stars. And Travis Hunter is one of those guys. He's an exception to the rule. He plays 1,000 plays, it feels like, and doesn't seem to get tired. They will pull him at times. And in K-State, I'm pretty sure the coaches have a plan. They need to be aware whenever he's out of the game, take advantage of it. And on both sides of the ball, offensive wise or defensive wise. And I'm pretty sure our coaches are aware of that and have watched other people do that. But yeah, it's such a different dynamic. I'm kind of interested to see, and I will tell our players this. I never experienced a non-cold game at
Mm.
Colorado. For whatever reason, when we played them there, we always played them later in the season, and we had to travel to Boulder when it was cold. The air was thin, and it was not a pleasant game to go to, but we made it happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the weather I don't think is going to be cold. It should be fairly temperate. Not going to be too hot. Should be a beautiful night for football. I want to talk a little bit about Dylan Edwards because this is a story that I think a lot of K-State folks maybe aren't talking about enough. I know Colorado folks are talking about it. In Deion Sanders' press conference on Tuesday, he did not have a single word. Not a single word was spoken about the game versus Kansas State. There was one question asked about Dylan Edwards coming back to Boulder, but it just everybody wanted to know about Coach Prime and what was going on with his program, and they didn't really care much about little old K-State. I think that might come back to bite him, but let's look at what Dylan Edwards can do. And I don't believe that there's any bad blood at all between Coach Prime and Dylan and the Edwards family, anything like that. It didn't work out in Colorado. He knew it was going to work out at K-State, and it has. But I do wonder if there are some guys on the Colorado defense that might take exception to Dylan now playing for Kansas State. I feel like as long as Dylan doesn't let that get to him, he's going to have a chance to have a really big night on Saturday.
No, I agree, and I know our coaches acknowledge that, not acknowledge it, but they're aware of that. They know the situation. They understand for him it's going to be an emotional journey back to Boulder. Not a bad thing, but he's going to be high, and the coaches are going to do a good job of keeping them calm, keeping them in the situation where they do get in the ball, but not force feed it to them, where it end up being something positive for Colorado. But I feel like our coaching staff do a really good job of setting them up for the big plays, and I want him to have a good experience. I want him to be successful. But yeah, it's a storyline you can't ignore. And I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I get excited talking about it too. And I will tell you, I'm looking forward to watching TV because I won't be in Boulder, watching TV and see his interaction with his former teammates and see how he handles that pressure. Because I feel like the kid has been in enough big games where the pressure won't get to him. But when you got some of your old boys, some of your old teammates, guys that you battled with the year before, it's going to be different. But I'm excited and the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned he's played big games. This is a guy, his very first game of his college career, he scored 4 touchdowns and was thrust into the national spotlight. He's played in, I wanted to say, 3 or 4 state championship games when he was at Derby. I don't think this is going to be a kid who's fazed by the moment at all, Monty, but I want to see them get him some touches because he is the kind of guy where it feels like the more he gets touches, the more he gets the ball in space, the better he is. Obviously, DJ Giddens was the hot hand last week. They tried to give Dylan the ball. He had his career or his season high in rushing attempts, but DJ was the hot hand. It very easily could be Dylan having the hot hand. I just hope that this Kansas State offense is going to find a way to get him the ball in space because this is going to be a kid who's playing with a lot of motivation. Not that the other guys aren't, but a guy who's playing with some extra motivation. And it would be really cool to see him find the end zone on Saturday.
No, I hope he does. And if he does, you're like you and I both. I think we probably would be so happy for him, his family, and that he scores as long as we win. That's the main thing. But going back to the game, I'm curious to see what K-State will do. You know, me personally, I want to see old school K-State, 2 tight ends, H-back, fullback, moving the pocket, you know, forcing a team to play every down, you know, and every times where we will roll the pocket, get some guys on the edge. But I want to see K-State in the trenches. And it's one of those things where I feel like if K-State can dictate the pace of the game, they give us a really good chance to be successful. Now, keep in mind, too, we came off a game where the last couple of games, we kind of dictated what happened, and we had a lot of success. But I feel like our coaches hadn't really gave a lot to be noticed as far as offensive schemes. And I feel like this game might be the game they open it up a little bit and see what happens. So I'm curious to see how that goes. And hopefully Dylan is a big part of it.
I feel like if Kansas State can dominate the offensive and defensive lines, they will dominate this football game.
Yeah.
If they struggle on the interior, then it's going to be tough to win. Colorado is talented enough to win this football game. There's nobody who doesn't believe that. But I think what is true, and if you just look at the statistics and you watch both of these teams play, one team is really good in the trenches and one team is not so good in the trenches. I don't want to say that they're bad because they are improved, But last year, the only way they could go was up. And they've gone up, but are they at the level of K-State? I don't know. But I do know one thing. We're going to dive into that and much more when we come back here on the Friday walkthrough. Thanks for sticking with us. We'll look at the Buffaloes. We'll look at the Wildcats. We'll give our score predictions, and we'll preview for the final segment. We'll preview once again Kansas State and Colorado when we come back right here on the Friday walkthrough.
It's time to take a break for our sponsors. We'll be back with more from GoPowerCat.com.
Nestled in the heart of beautiful and historic Council Grove, Kansas, Riverbank Brewing is the perfect place to stop before or after the game. Riverbank Brewing, located in downtown Council Grove.
Now let's head back to the show for more K-State sports coverage from GoPowerCat.com.
Welcome back to the Friday walkthrough. Cool comedy with Monty Spiller. Shout out to Riverbank Brewing for sponsoring this episode and every episode of the Friday walkthrough. Monty, we will be doing the post-game podcast live Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Win, lose, draw, quadruple overtime. It doesn't matter. We'll be there. It'll be fun. Fitz and Gilbert and Big B actually are all in Boulder, or will be in Boulder for the game, which Monty and I will be on here talking some Cats and Buffs. Before we obviously have the post-game podcast, we have to finish this one. Let's look at this, Monty, because as I started to do some more research into Colorado, it became very apparent to me. If this was a 7-on-7 or a flag football contest, Colorado could play with any single team in the country. And that is not a knock. I am not knocking them. I am just saying that their skill position guys are really dang good.
They are, and I would put them up against any skill position guys, not just in the Big 12, but in the nation. And a lot of times people overlook the Big 12 because people say the Big 12 don't play good defense, but I've been one of those guys for years to come, and I think I will continue to be. I said we play good defense, but our offenses are so prolific. People always assume that our defenses aren't good, and Colorado's offense fits just fine in the Big 12 scheme of things because they pass it around the yard. They have guys that can run like crazy, guys that can go get the ball. You put them one-on-one, more than likely they're going to win those battles. So they are talented across the board. You know, the three guys that get the most looks are Sanders and Hunter, and the other Sanders brother, I believe, is out for the season with injury. But there are several other guys on the team that would start for any team in the nation, including Colorado. So they are stacked with talent. That's one thing Coach Prime does. He knows how to recruit talent. So that's not a question.
Travis Hunter, obviously, the leading receiver for the Buffaloes, 561 yards receiving for 6 touchdowns. I didn't have to write anything down about him except for the fact that he is a dude. Travis Hunter, if there's ever a Heisman Trophy candidate, it's him. I think he should win it. I don't care if Colorado wins 6 games this year. What he's able to do to help his team and the kind of football player he is, if we're talking about strictly football players, I think he's the best football player in the country, and I think he should be a top 3 pick in the NFL draft. So he'll play cornerback. He'll play receiver, as you mentioned. He's Shadur Sanders' #1 target. I think Shadur Sanders, as we kind of talk about the quarterback play in this game, Monty, and I think Shadur Sanders is the best quarterback in the Big 12. But I also think that he throws the ball so much more that he's going to have a chance to put up a lot more statistics than a guy like Avery Johnson. But with those opportunities to throw the ball comes the opportunity to pressure. And you will get a lot more negative plays on pass plays than you will on run plays. Shadur Sanders has been sacked 17 times. By comparison, Avery Johnson has been sacked 4.
Yeah. No, everything you said is true and accurate. And one thing, in all the games I've watched him play in, like I said, he moves the pocket well. He has the pocket presence of a pro. And obviously being surrounded by so many guys that know the game, that's going to come. The guy is talented. He's gifted with great feet and movement in the pocket. But one thing I will say I noticed, he tends to hold on to the ball way longer than any other quarterback I watch because he wants to make the play so bad. And like you said, they can come back to bite you a little bit. Case in point, the Nebraska game, there were guys open, and he held on to the ball, and Nebraska took advantage of it, you know. And there are times when sometimes everybody knows he loves Travis Hunter. Sometimes he locks on to Travis. And if you got guys doubling him, no matter how great an athlete it is, he's not going to win every battle. And so that gives the defense opportunity. So with that being said, is he a great quarterback? Absolutely. But there is opportunity for our defense to make plays. If we stay home, be good with our eyes and our D-line and our linebacker get pressure on them, we can force them to some bad plays and get some opportunities because of that.
And what I see with Shadur Sanders is once you get to him, then that doubt starts to creep into the back of his mind. That doubt from last year where he was sacked more than any other Division I quarterback, that doubt from this year in the Nebraska game where if you get to him, he has a tendency to bail with any kind of pressure. And he's not a scrambler. That's not what he does. He's not going to escape the pocket and try and run downfield. Now, will he try and get 3 or 4 yards? That's fine. But he is a prototypical NFL quarterback. And, you know, the way the NFL is trending, I don't even know if he's a prototypical NFL quarterback because all those guys are athletes now. But he's not going to scramble on you. And so I think from a defensive perspective, Monty, that should be the goal. Yeah. Get pressure on the edge, up the middle, doesn't matter. If you can find a way to get him to the ground 1 or 2 times in the first quarter, in the first half, whatever it is, but impact his throws, that's going to completely change the game plan for that Colorado offense.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I feel like we're in a good position where we can go nickel packages. We can go an extra safety rather than a down lineman. And I feel like our run game, our defensive run game is decent enough where we can slow down their running game and we don't have to stack the box as much, that which allows more athletes, more in-between guys, linebackers, safeties on the field. So when Colorado does want to throw the ball, we can be there to force them into some bad situations. But, yeah, we need a team effort for sure, and it's going to be a great opportunity ahead of us. But I respect them, but I don't fear them, you know, and yeah. I'm playing the game. But if I was a player, I watch film like, hey, man, they're good. But you should fear any team. But I definitely respect what they present. But I feel like the guys that we have in place, and when we communicate and when we line up and do what we're coached, we're a really good team. But when we don't communicate and we have guys running free, anybody can beat us, you know. And look at the Tulane game. Look at the BYU game. Luckily, we came back and beat Tulane. But the BYU game, we weren't as fortunate. But when we're on point, we're pretty dang good in the back end. And hopefully that's the case come Saturday.
I'm with you. And I look at this Colorado rushing attack, Monty, and their leading rusher has rushed for just over 100 yards on the season. So that's not what they do. I mean, they're not going to have guys that run the ball 15, 16, 17 times. And if they do that, it's probably because the throwing game's not working. And so I like this matchup for K-State. I know K-State's good at stopping the run. That's what they do. But now, essentially, you make Colorado one-dimensional. And can they beat you one-dimensional? I don't know if they can. I mean, they've got some good receivers. Will Shepard, 247 yards. LaJohntay Wester, 260 yards. And then Jimmy Horn, 327 yards is the second leading receiver. So they've got some guys, no doubt about it. But I really like this matchup for K-State. And on offense, on the flip side, I think K-State's going to be able to move the ball. I've been sitting here for the last 2 weeks saying this is going to be, you mentioned old school football. Let's talk about it because I want to see K-State just run the rock right down the throat of Colorado because that's Colorado's weakness. That's Colorado's weakness is stopping the run. They were better against UCF, but they had the lead and UCF had to throw the ball. If you can control the clock, man, you're going to win this game.
Exactly. It's one of those things. If you look at Colorado's last 3 games, with the exception of UCF, those last 3 games have been close. They had to win overtime on a miraculous catch late, and they had to have a few things change up to get back in the game. So, and people forget that, and I'm not knocking them because great teams find a way to win. And like my high school coach told me, never apologize for a win. And if people make excuses, that's on them. Never apologize for a win. And I guarantee Colorado feels the same way. But it hadn't been like a dominant effort. And like I said, UCF, they controlled the game. UCF couldn't compete with them. But I feel like K-State and physicality that we bring to the table, and if our guys come like I know they can and they can be ready, it's going to be a physical game. And one thing people forget, if you go back to that North Dakota State game, you forget where Coach Kleiman comes from. You don't, but others forget that.
Yep.
He got that in him still. Yep. And a lot of stuff they run, they still got that in their back pocket. And North Dakota State had a lot of success against Colorado defense, and that's when Colorado's defense was healthy.
Yep.
And so you better believe I would not be surprised to see K-State bring some of that old North Dakota State to them and see what happens. I don't know, but that's just a guess.
That's a good call. I mean, you look at what North Dakota State did. I mean, If K-State runs that same game plan North Dakota State has, K-State has better players than North Dakota State, and North Dakota State was in that game until literally the last play, Hail Mary, that was completed but fell 2 yards short. So yeah, I'm with you. I want to see K-State run the ball. This screams 20 to 25 carries for DJ Giddens for 150 yards. Like, I want to see DJ get the rock. He might not be able to break those big, long runs, but he is going to be able to average 4, 5, 6 yards a carry. And when you do that, then you can open up the defense for a little play action bootleg. If Avery Johnson wants to throw it down the field. If he wants to run it, he can run it. I think with Dylan, with Avery, and with DJ, I mean, that is what K-State's good at. They've got to lean into that. And against a team that struggles to stop the run, it just seems like we're going to see K-State run the ball until Colorado can stop it.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's one of those things where I know some people may think we're biased or we're crazy for thinking that, but until somebody stops them, I'm going to continue to believe that. DJ, and we talked about it preseason, DJ got no love. Well, he didn't get hated on, but he was not one of the top guys talked about at running back, and he's been quiet about it. And if anybody says different now, just turn on the film, and it speaks volumes. DJ is one of the best backs in the Big 12, and the kid does it the right way. And going back to backs, now, and like for me, I'm always thinking about the out of the box things. Dylan Edwards, he knows some of those defensive players' weaknesses. So, and from Colorado, he played against them. They practice against each other. They do 1-on-1s. They do 7-on-7. They do inside drills. And so I'm guaranteeing he's in meeting and say, hey, coach, when we would go 1-on-1s, I would stem this kid this way. He was horrible with his hips. Or this kid has flicking in the backfield. Or this kid's not as physical. I guarantee having that insight is going to help. It might not help every play, but it could be a deciding factor where, like, hey, it's 3rd and long or third and short, whatever. He's lined up over here. He has these tendencies. Take advantage of it. So that's something that we should look at as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it doesn't have to be an every down thing, like you said. If it converts a first down and keeps the drive alive, then it was well worth it. I mean, I agree. I think that K-State has a chance to move the ball. And you know what? I want to see more from Avery Johnson. I know people have made a lot about the road struggles, and I put that in air quotes, road struggles, but they've played 30 minutes of suspect football, maybe not even 30 minutes. I'll say 25. I mean, the first part of the first quarter against Tulane, they were good. The second quarter and the end of the first quarter against Tulane, they were bad. Second half, they turned it around. They had a 5-minute stretch against BYU that literally lost them the game. Were they very good before? They weren't great. Were they very good at the end? No, but they weren't bad. And so it's amazing how we think about this team struggling on the road when it hasn't even been a full 60 minutes worth of showing. And people are going to look at the score against BYU and say, this team can't play on the road. But to me, I don't know if they can't play on the road. It's just a little inconsistencies. So if they can find a way to just get rid of those things, I mean, it sounds simple to say, but if they just can find a way to be somewhat steady, take the punches, because the punches are going to come. It's going to be the ebbs and flows. It's going to happen. Inevitably, K-State might find themselves down in this game. But if they can kind of ride the wave, take the punches, and go with the flow, I really do believe as long as they're in this game in the second half, they will find a way to win.
I truly believe we will be okay. Going back to the BYU game, and I said it the next week, every team in the nation has a game when everything goes wrong, everything goes wrong.
Alabama.
For us, back to back to back.
Yep.
The fumble, the interception, the punt return. And we were behind the 8 ball, and we blinked 3 minutes later, we're down 21 points. And everything that happened. Case in point, this past weekend, I was watching A&M and Coach Klein coaching against Missouri. Missouri's a quality team, top 10 team, one of the highest stats-wise passing game. Everything could go wrong in that game went wrong.
Yep.
And whoops at Kyle Field. And so Missouri fans are like, that's not the team we're used to. K-State fans are like, that's not the team we're used to. And then we bounce back next week. So BYU game, we lost it. We got it out of the way. We got that game out of the way. That everything can go wrong game is out of the way. So I look forward to us playing good quality ball moving forward, starting Saturday night in Boulder, Colorado.
Both teams coming off of a bye. It's going to be a spectacle. Chris Kleiman hasn't exactly been the greatest off of bye weeks, but I tend to suspect that has to do more with the opponent than it does the actual bye week itself. All I know is it's going to be an electric atmosphere on Saturday night. As we wrap up this show, Monty, we've got to get into our predictions. Somebody asked me to make my prediction early in the week, and I wasn't prepared to do it, but I'm going to stick with the same score just to kind of be accurate. I think this is going to be a close game. I'm going to pick Kansas State to win. I feel confident that they're going to be able to move the ball. I'm not sure that we're going to see a dominant defense performance from K-State, but I also don't necessarily think that they're going to give up big plays that really swing momentum. I could kind of see this game being a one-score game throughout until K-State kind of takes control, and then obviously Colorado is going to air it out. I can kind of see them trying to make it close at the end of the game. I'm going to go ahead and say Kansas State wins this game 38-30. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. I think K-State's going to be able to move the ball. I think Colorado's going to be able to move the ball. But in the end, I just think K-State's physicality and ability to wear down that Colorado defense is going to be too much for Coach Prime and the Buffs to overcome.
No, I'm with you. I'm not going quite as high as you. I'm going 28-21. Reason being, I think K-State with the old school football, hopefully, they're going to slow the clock down, slow the game. We'll have points where we'll speed it up, but I feel like we'll get chunk yards and we'll slow it down. Because one coach always said, the best defense you can have is having an offense on the sideline. So if they're not on the field to score, they're not on the field, they can't score. So I feel like we'll take our time, we'll get chunk yards here and there, then we get in the red zone, take advantage of it. And if our defense can bend but don't break, hold them to a couple of field goals here and there, I like the opportunity. But I'm going to go 28-21.
You know how the old saying, they have to mud it up?
Yep.
Well, that's kind of what Casey has to do. And the difference is they actually might be able to do that because a Folsom Field is grass. Very rare do we see teams play on grass anymore, but in Boulder, they have grass. So if K-State muds it up, again, we both think that K-State wins by a touchdown. It should be a great game. I'm anticipating a great game. You're anticipating a great game. Hopefully you all at home are anticipating a great game. If you're heading to the game and listening to this podcast, make sure you wear your purple. Enjoy the game wherever you may be. 9:15, 8:15, whatever time it is, 9:15 ESPN Saturday night. Make sure you join us for the post-game podcast Sunday morning at 10 a.m. I am Cole Carmody. That is Monty Spiller. Enjoy the game wherever you may be, and we will talk to you, I guess, on Sunday.
Thank you for watching the Friday Walkthrough, sponsored by Riverbank Brewing. This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production.